The email arrives on a Wednesday, and you almost delete it because the subject line reads like spam. Confidential opportunity, immediate compensation review. You've gotten 100 emails like this. Fake recruiters, crypto schemes wearing a suit. But something about the sender's domain stops your thumb over the trash icon. It's a real company, not a huge one, but real, with an actual office, actual clients, a LinkedIn page that isn't 3 weeks old. You open it. The offer is triple your current salary. Not a raise, not a negotiation starting point. Triple, stated plainly in the second paragraph, along with a start date 4 weeks out and a signing bonus that alone is more than you've saved in the last 3 years. Combined, you read it twice. You read it a third time slower, waiting for the part where it explains itself, the part that always exists in offers like this, the small print that turns triple pay into some kind of trap. You don't find it. The email just says the role is head of strategic partnerships, reporting directly to the CEO, and that they'd like to meet this week, if possible. You call your sister first because she's the one person who tells you the truth, even when the truth is inconvenient. It's too much money, she says. Companies don't pay triple for no reason. There's always a reason. You tell her you'll find out the reason before you sign anything. You don't fully believe yourself when you say it, because some part of you has already started imagining the apartment you could afford, the car you could finally replace, the version of your life where you stop doing math every time you swipe a card. The interview is at a glass office downtown, 22nd floor. The kind of place where the elevator plays no music and the silence itself feels expensive. You're greeted not by a recruiter, but by the CEO herself, a woman named Renata, mid-50s, sharp gray blazer, a handshake that's just slightly too firm, like she's testing something. She doesn't waste time. She tells you the company handles high-value client relationships, the kind where a single deal can be worth more than most companies make in a year. She tells you the last person in this role left abruptly 6 weeks ago, no notice, and that the position has been open since. She tells you the salary reflects the stakes of the role, not generosity. You ask what happened to the last person. She pauses for exactly 1 second too long before she says, "He decided the role wasn't a fit." You don't push it in the room. You push it in the elevator on the way down, pulling out your phone before the doors even close, searching the man's name, which Renata mentioned once in passing without meaning to. The way people sometimes let a name slip when they're focused on the bigger picture and forget the small detail matters. His name is Callum Reyes. You find his LinkedIn. It says simply, open to opportunities. No explanation. No new job listed. 6 weeks of silence where a normal profile would show something, anything, a new role, a project, excited to announce post. Just a blank space where his career should be moving forward. You message him. You don't expect a reply. People in his position rarely explain themselves to strangers who might be their replacement. He replies within an hour. "Can we talk on the phone? Not here." You call him that night. His voice is careful, the voice of someone who's rehearsed what he's willing to say and what he isn't. "I'm not going to tell you not to take it," he says. "That's not my place. I'll tell you what I wish someone had told me." You ask him to just tell you. "The clients aren't normal clients," he says. "The deals aren't normal deals. You'll be told you're handling high-value relationship management." What that actually means is you're the person who makes sure certain people stay happy enough not to ask questions. You ask what kind of questions. He goes quiet for a second. "I signed something when I left. I can't get specific, but I'll tell you this. The reason the pay is triple isn't because the job is hard. It's because the job requires you to know things and not react to them. That's worth a premium to people like Renata. Silence is expensive when the thing you're staying silent about is expensive too. You ask him why he left. Because I found out what one of the deals actually was, he says. And once you know, you can't not know. You either become someone who's fine with it, or you become someone who has to leave. I left. You thank him. You hang up feeling worse than you did before the call, because now the offer isn't just too good to be true. It's specifically, deliberately vague in a way that suggests someone designed it to keep you from asking the right questions until you're already in too deep to walk away easily. But here's the thing about triple your salary. It doesn't stop being triple your salary just because a stranger on the phone sounds nervous. You think about your rent. You think about the promotion you didn't get 18 months ago, the one that went to someone with worse numbers and a louder voice. You think about how tired you are of being competent and underpaid, watching people with half your work ethic get ahead because they had the right last name or the right connections or simply the confidence to ask for more. You decide to take the job, not blindly, carefully. You tell yourself you'll go in with your eyes open, gather information, protect yourself, and walk if it's as bad as Callum implied. You tell yourself you're smarter than whatever trap this is. You start on a Monday. The first 2 weeks are almost disappointingly normal. You review client files, most of them ordinary businesses, unremarkable numbers, nothing that would justify a triple salary or a predecessor speaking in code about things he can't specify. You start to think maybe Callum was dramatic, maybe he burned out, or had a personality conflict with Renata, or simply couldn't handle a demanding role and needed a story that made his exit feel principled instead of just difficult. Then, in week 3, you get access to the Tier 1 client folder. There are only 4 names in it. Each one has almost no information attached, which is strange for accounts this size. No standard onboarding documents. No compliance paperwork that every other client file has in triplicate. Just a name, a contact number, and a single line describing the relationship. Ongoing. Handle personally. Do not escalate. You ask Renata about the Tier 1 clients in your next one-on-one. She tells you those relationships are handled differently, that you'll be briefed individually on each one as needed, and that for now you should focus on the standard portfolio. You don't push. You've learned by now that pushing gets you careful non-answers, and careful non-answers tell you less than patience does. 2 weeks later, you're briefed on your first Tier 1 client. His name is spoken once, quietly, in a closed-door meeting with Renata and one other executive you've never met before, a man who doesn't introduce himself and doesn't need to, because the way Renata defers to him tells you everything about where he sits in the actual hierarchy of this company, regardless of what any org chart says. You're told the client requires quarterly relationship maintenance, which turns out to mean a dinner, always at the same private venue, always with cash gifts exchanged that are labeled internally as client appreciation, but are, functionally, envelopes handed across a table with no receipt and no explanation. You attend your first one. You sit through a dinner where the client barely speaks to you directly, speaks mostly to the unnamed executive in a low voice you're clearly not meant to follow, and at the end of the night, you're handed an envelope to deliver back to the office, sealed with instructions to give it only to Renata, personally, the next morning. You don't open it. You think about opening it the entire drive home, your hands actually twitching toward it at every red light. And you don't, because some instinct older than curiosity tells you that whatever's inside Knowing what it is will change what you're required to do next. And right now, you still have the option of not knowing. You deliver it unopened. Renata thanks you. She says you handled it well. She says most people ask questions the first time, and the fact that you didn't tells her you understand the role. That sentence sits with you for days. The fact that you didn't tells her you understand the role. You understand suddenly exactly what Callum meant on the phone. The job was never about strategy or partnerships. The job is about being the kind of person who can hold an envelope, feel its unnatural weight, and hand it over without asking, because asking is the one thing this role cannot survive. You start doing your own research after that, quietly, carefully. You cross-reference the Tier 1 client's name against public records, against news archives, against anything you can find, without leaving a digital trail that traces back to your work account. It takes weeks, mostly dead ends, until one late night you find a small regional news article from 4 years ago, half buried, about a business dispute involving a name that matches, almost exactly, one of your 4 Tier 1 clients. The article is thin on details, the kind of story that got published once and then quietly disappeared, the way stories do when someone with resources decides they'd rather it disappear. You don't get definitive proof of anything. You get enough to understand that Callum wasn't being dramatic. You get enough to understand why he left with no notice and no new job lined up, choosing unemployment and uncertainty over staying somewhere he'd learned too much to be comfortable. You think about your sister's voice on the phone. Companies don't pay triple for no reason. You think about how right she was and how the reason was never really a secret. It was just wrapped in language soft enough that you had to choose to look past it. And for 2 months, you did. You go to Renata's office on a Thursday afternoon and tell her you're resigning. You don't give the real reason. You say it's not the right fit, the same phrase she used about Callum, and you watch something flicker across her face when you say it. A flicker of recognition, like she knows exactly what those words actually mean when someone in this role says them. She doesn't argue. She doesn't ask you to reconsider. She simply says she understands, and that she'll have your final paycheck processed within the week, and that she wishes you well. There's no dramatic confrontation, no threat, no scene, just a quiet acknowledgement between 2 people who both understand exactly what just happened and have both decided not to say it out loud. Your last day is a Friday. The office is quiet. Most people gone by 6, and you're packing the few things that are actually yours into a box that feels embarrassingly light for 2 months of your life. A phone charger, a coffee mug, a notebook you barely wrote in. And then you open the bottom drawer of your desk, the one you never used, the one that stuck slightly the one time you tried it during your first week and you never bothered with again. It slides open easily now. Inside, there's an envelope. Same cream color, same weight, same seal as the ones from the dinner. Your name is written on the front in handwriting you recognize immediately because you've watched it sign documents across a conference table for 2 months. Renata's handwriting. You stand there in the empty office, holding it, and every instinct that told you not to open the envelope in the car that night is gone. Because this one has your name on it. And a thing with your name on it is already yours, whether you open it or not. You open it. Inside is cash, a thick, banded stack of it. You don't count it, but you don't need to, because you recognize the amount from your offer letter. It's your signing bonus, the exact figure. Except your signing bonus was already paid months ago by direct deposit, taxed and documented and clean. This is a second one, in cash, unrecorded. And underneath the money, a single folded note, in the same handwriting as your name on the front. You were never being paid to manage clients. You were being paid so we could see if you'd open the envelope. You didn't. Then you resigned without making noise. You passed both tests. The people I work for are always looking for someone who knows when not to look and when to walk away quietly. That skill is worth far more than triple. Someone will contact you. The real offer starts now. You stand in the empty office for a long time. You think about Callum, who left with no notice and no explanation and no new job, and who answered a stranger's message within an hour and told you just enough to make you careful, and not one word more. You think about how he never actually told you not to take the job. You think about the phrase "the role wasn't a fit," and how Renata said it about him, with a pause that you mistook for discomfort when it might have been something else entirely. Assessment. The way you sound when you're describing someone who's moved on to a different position, somewhere you can't mention. You look at the envelope in your hands, the cash, the note, the sentence that won't stop repeating in your head. The real offer starts now. You realize, standing in an office you thought you were escaping, holding money you never asked for, that quitting was never the way out. Quitting was the interview. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next story.